Good afternoon. Welcome to another time here. Welcome to another time at the book club. So glad to have you. So glad you came. So glad you made it. I'm just all right. So we're doing this second Sunday in June, doing a summary of the book readings since October. Business is Personal by Bethenny Frankel. So we're using this month to do a summary to the book all we've learned since October. So this is part 2 to it. We have part 3, part 4. Then we're going to our first Sunday in July, and we're going to start with our new book, which is The Good Life. It's going to be the 6th book in this series here, The Good Life by Robert Waldinger and Mark Schutz. And The Good Life just talks about how to be happy, talks about happiness and life, and talks about, and the main thing it targets in talking about happiness, talking about relationships, targets that relationship is a secret. When you have the right relationship, then you're able then to have be happy in life. You can be happy all the days of your life, but it takes courage to be happy all the days of your life. There's no reason why you should be sad any day of life, right? Because intent is that we'll be happy, right? And you can be. It's just a matter of understanding relationship and having the right courage to live the life you are being given, the life that you have, right? On the way to having the life that you want, right? Great. I'm going to go ahead here and bring up the slides here and we'll shoot it. All right, I'm sure you can see my slide. There's a book, Business is Personal. That's the front of the book we're closing. We'll try to do a bit of a sneak peek into the good life, every Sunday of this month as we go into July itself. So we'll look at how to transition from a good life to a great life. But this is also how to have a good life. What we're talking about also helps you have a good life, but not just have a good life, but having a great life. More like we've been reading through Bethenny's book, and it talks about how to succeed while not losing yourself. So this pretty much talking not just staying at good, but going to great, which also goes with Jim C. Collins' book on good to great, right? So look at some point here and how on that it ties also with St. Jerome's quote. It says, going from good, better, best. Never let it rest. Don't stay until your good is better and your better is best. One of the secrets to happiness in life is growth. If you're not growing, you cannot be happy. To be happy, you need to grow. If you're not growing, you can't be happy. If you're happy, you will grow. Right? Or to be happy, you need to grow. And God made us for growth. God himself is life, right? A sign of life is a sign of God. God is life, right? Growth is life. Where God is, growth exists, right? So one of the things I highlighted here on how to then have a good life and grow into a great life is a need to be committed to growth, be committed to life. Miles Monroe says the greatest enemy of progress is your last success, right? Don't settle, don't par, right? Rabbi Daniel Lapin, tells us that in the Hebrew alphabet or vocabulary, there's no word for retirement. God did not create us to retire, right? Until we die, God expects us to be useful in this life, be a blessing, impact lives. Right, let our essence be for as long as we can breathe. Right, so it's going from good to better to best, continuously growing. And so don't be a victim of your success. Right, Miles Monroe goes on and says you could become so proud of what you've already accomplished that you stop moving ahead to what you can still accomplish, right? Irrespective of the mountain you have conquered, there are yet more mountains to conquer. right until you die. There will always be something you can do better. I love it when Michelangelo on his dying bed said, I am still learning, right? With all he accomplished, he was still learning, he was still growing. We have no excuse not to grow, right? So if you're going to be happy, if you're going to have a good life, if you're going to grow to a great life, you need to be committed to growth, right? Growth, right? In every area of your life. That's important. The second one, which is all we're going to do today, no, three. We're going to do three of them. There are about 7 of them. We'll do 3 today, probably 4 next week. It's also the need to discover your passion, right? You need to discover the things that make you happy, the thing that fuels you, the thing that you would do if you don't get paid for it, the things you would do if you don't have to do anything at all, right? In your leisure, what would you easily gravitate to doing? Right? If you don't have to do anything, what fills your tank, what makes you happy, and what excites you, right? It's your passion. And passion somehow is closely related to purpose. But the difference between the two of them is that passion is internal for yourself. When your passions you don't do for anyone else, you're really doing it for yourself to fill your tank. But when it comes to purpose, it's the way by which you impact lives, you impact your environment, the things that you do to make a difference or leave your dink in life, right? So that's a basic thing, and the third thing goes along that, right? It says you need to find your purpose in life. Why are you here? Right? What mark are you here to leave? What legacy are you here to leave? Right? What are you here to make better? Right, for the time that you were here, and you need that to be able to have a good life, because if all you're doing is your passion, you're only concerned about yourself, you're going to be bloated, right? You're not going to be happy. You're going to be full of it at the end of the day, right? Everything that takes place on the inside of you needs to go out and affect lives, make a difference to life, leave a legacy for your life, for yourself, right? It needs to impact people, make creation better, right? God created us to continue the creation work. God is creator, and he has created us little creators to extend the creation work that he has done. In the scriptures, the Bible says that he has created us, fashioned us for good works that he had prepared before we came onto the scene. So there's a work, there's a thing that God would like us to do. That is our purpose, that's our intent, that is what's written concerning us in the books before we came. God had in mind works that we're supposed to do, and he fashioned us for that purpose and brought us on the scene to do them. So you need to find out what is yours, right? It's different for different people. We all have a different ones that God expects us, to make impact on for the time that we're here, right? And this is just a quick illustration, Trabi, also helping us to understand the difference between passion, purpose, and all of that, and there are 4 circles, right? 4 circles which intersect, right? The start point is the best of life, right? Where what you love doing, what you're good at, and what you get paid for also impacts the world, right? But it's not everything that does that. But if you live within that start point, then you're living in heaven, right? But just looking at different ways in which they intersect each other. There is your calling, there is your career, and being able to understand the difference between that helps you also. You know how to prioritize your life, right? With that. All right, let's kick it on and go to our summary here. Last week, we did a summary of the introduction to the book up to chapter 3. Today, we're going to be looking at chapter 4, chapter 5, chapter 6, and chapter 7. Right, we'll copy a summary of those 4 chapters. We'll do a quick run through it. The title of chapter 4 was "Say What You Mean What You Say." Be a person of your word. Your words are your signatures. When I say something, I'm vomiting out a part of me. My word is me, just like God's word. right? But know that in scripturally for we Christians, we say Jesus is the word of God. And God says when he sends out his word, they will not come out void. They will not come back void. They will not come back without accomplishing that the purpose, the intent for which it has been sent out, right? That's the same level that we should gravitate towards, because our words, represent us, represent who we are. When we shut our mouth and say nothing, everyone thinks we're wise. But once we open our mouth, we're declaring who we are. What we say, is a declaration of who we are. People know us by our words, right? So we need to be careful, therefore, with the words we say, right? Our words are our person, right? Our words mean something. You might think it doesn't mean anything to us, but people interpret what we say to define who we are, and to the extent to which they can walk with us or they can trust us, right? So if your words mean nothing, then you're saying that your life means nothing, because your words are supposed to mean something. They're supposed to mean you, right? We need to be measured in the usage of our words. Each word you use, you must know why you're saying it and for what intent and purpose, right? For us Christians, Jesus Christ will say, not every word I will say will be judged, right? If every word that I say will be judged, then I need to, be measured, be intentional in every word that I say, know why I'm saying it, to what purpose and intent it is, and what I'm expecting to receive back, from the words that I say. So the single biggest problem, all right. That's just general about words, but we switch on into communication. And one of the biggest problem in communication is the assumption that, or the assumption that it has taken place when it has not taken place, and that happens between everybody we communicate with, everybody we communicate with, yeah. So, it happens everywhere, So, and that's one of the things that destroys marriages. It always comes up, one of the top three, if not top two, on the things that destroy marriages or get people into divorce, right? Another top one is commitment, but close to commitment is communication also, on the top reasons why why relationships don't last. Most times when marriages or relationships break down, it's not necessarily because they don't have affection or chemistry. It's just because they're not able to understand themselves, and the key to understanding is communication, right? So communication is important in relationships, right? So, and communication, where people miss it, is the thing, communication is between two heads talking. Right. Yesterday, my wife was trying to communicate something to me. Right. She was saying it based on one of my write-ups, one of my sharings of my marriage community. But she was not saying it the right way. Right. She wanted to say it, but she was saying it in a way that she just dropped it down, and it was a bit offensive, even though she didn't mean it that way, but I kind of got what she was trying to do, but we need to remember communication. When you're communicating with people, you're not speaking to their head, you're speaking to their heart. Their emotions get in the place. You have to understand that communication is between two hearts, not two heads. That's where people miss it when you're communicating. Communication has been two hearts, not two heads, right? It's hearts that communicate, heads don't communicate, right? However, hearts are not transmission stations. So what it is that I want to transmit to another heart, I have to use words, and those words are the carriers of what I'm saying. And those words have to go from my heart to my head, to my mouth, to the other person's head, right? To the person's heart, right? Hearts cannot speak to hearts, because hearts are not transmission stations. Minds are transmission stations. Words are transmission agents, right? But they have to go through the process of that. I'm trying to communicate to people. It goes from my heart to their head, from my heart to my head, to their head, to their heart, right? Until the hearts, until there's a heart to heart communication has not taken place, because the essence of communication is that the other person sees what you see, feels what you feel, and knows what it is that you want the person to do, right? Until that takes place, communication has not taken place. You have only just been making noise, right? So communication is about making connection. And that connection is not between two heads, it's between two hearts, right? You have to, the person that you're talking to have to feel the sense that is being seen in your talking, that you see me in your talking, for the person to get the message that's been communicated, right? So where there's no communication, there's no connection. And when I said that twice. What I really wanted to say is that where there's no connection, all right, where there's no connection, right? That's the second part. Where there's no connection, right? There is no communication. It's just vice versa, right? It's where there's no communication, there is no connection, and where there's no connection, there's no communication. You know what? And another thing around communication is the fact that what is not as much as what is that we talk and we think that that's all there is to communication, but when anybody that's receiving our message, right, what they see is more powerful than what they hear. And so much so that if your gesticulation does not match your words, the person will hear your gesticulation and not what you're saying, because in the ascendancy of communication, the eyes are at a higher hierarchy than the ears, right? What you see, it takes precedence over what you're hearing, so much so that what you see can physically change what you're hearing, so that the person communicating to you saying one thing, but you're hearing something differently, not an assumption, it's a physical reality, such that the person is saying yes, but all you're hearing is no, and you're hearing it, right? Because if the gesticulations, are more in tune with no, that's what you would hear, right? So it is true. So that those are things you need to be aware of when you're communicating, such that the gesticulations, because what the person sees takes precedence over what you are saying, because the person would hear what the person is seeing above what the person is, above what you are saying, right? So that's important. That's important. So if you're a communicator, you have to be cognizant of that, such that your gesticulation, and not just your gesticulation, your person, right, has to be in alignment with what you're saying. Because when people hear you, they are hearing who they know you to be, not necessarily what you're saying at that point in time. Rather, the power of communication, the power of the life that is saying it, right? That's important. All right, let's move on. So still in chapter 4, simply we have to, and that helps also in communication when you're a man of your words. Let your yes be your yes and your no be your no. And that's a place of maturity, right? Where your yes is your yes and your no is your no, right? And that comes from being truthful to yourself, right? So every time, in every yes and no you say, you're establishing your truthfulness as a person, and you're establishing the scale, the spectrum against which your communication is being judged and heard, right? So there's no level of truthfulness. You do not have a truthfulness, just like you cannot be half pregnant, right? You're either truthful or not truthful, and who you are affects your communication, right? No, so we must never be observed, right? Everything I do, you must know that people are looking at you, whether you know it or not. So you need to act that way. Right. Don't ever think that you have a moment where nobody's looking at you and you do some strange thing. Right. It's going to get into the public. If nothing else, God is looking at you. You are looking at yourself, and you're going to recall that. It's going to affect you because you are looking at yourself, so that needs to be the way we live our life, that we live our life as people that are observed, such that we contain ourselves, we hold ourselves together, we always live up to the ideal, that we've held in our minds, right? We need to live up to the person we admire, the person we would truly want to be, and not give ourselves any excuse to live any less. right? So every yes and every no is observed. People are observing it, God is observing it, you are observing it also, so you have to be one that's not living by instinct, just making sudden decisions, don't live by your feelings. Your feelings are not true, right? And that's a problem with the mental sickness of all these things about that's going on, right? And people are talking about what they feel like, which doesn't necessarily make sense. You can feel like anything. You can feel like being a dog, a cat. It does not justify it, right? We're not animals. We're not created to live by instincts. We're created to live by judgment. You have to make a judgment and order your life according to it, because you feel like sleeping with your daughter, your son, or some strange person on the road doesn't make it right. Right is right, irrespective of the way you feel. Right, wrong is wrong, irrespective of the way you feel. There's no affirmation of the wrong thing, right? You cannot feel like you're a boy when you're a girl, or feel like you're a girl when you're a boy, right? You need to make judgment and not subject yourself to lowly feelings in your person. That is an animalistic tendency. That is mental sickness, right? We're created to make judgments and lead by decision, because every judgment that we make, every decision we make have consequences and responsibilities, and there'll be no excuse. We're responsible, and we have to take the consequences of our decisions. There are no excuses around them, right? It's not instinct, it's a decision, right, that we'll make. So lastly, in chapter 4, our inability to live up to our commitments will heat up on our self-esteem, right? Every time we promise ourselves, we'll talk to ourselves, well, I'll do this, I'll do that. We're not just talking to ourselves, we're talking to God, we're talking to the universe, we're talking, and God, the universe, ourselves, owes us responsible for the things we have said. And each time we promise ourselves we'll do something, we'll live up to it. It heats up on our self-esteem. We become less. It deprecates our self-esteem. We become less of who we are, right? So it's important, if you want to build a self-esteem, that you live up to your commitments. First of all, don't make commitments you can never live up to, right? And if you make commitment, try your best to live up to that, because it helps you feel more like a human. It builds your confidence up, because it builds your self-esteem up, right? So it's not about just what you promised to others. What you promised to yourself, you need to live up to it so that you can believe in yourself, right? So your self-esteem, your integrity, gives clarity to your communication. When you're confident in yourself, you're telling other people you believe in yourself. If you believe in yourself, they will also want to believe in you, because we all teach people how to treat us, right? People will treat us the way we present ourselves, right? If we present ourselves as someone that people should not believe in, they will not believe in you. If you're telling people that you're not confident in yourself, people won't have confidence in you. We are the ones that teach people how to treat us, right? So we need to treat ourselves well, live with a high self-esteem, sense of self, live with integrity, be a person of our words, and that will make a difference in success in our life, So if you're a person of your words, you don't need too many words to say anything. Jesus went to the people and just said, follow me. He didn't have to explain to them, well, follow me because, no, they followed him because of who he is, right? He didn't need too much words. If you find yourself having to use too many words to explain to somebody, there's something wrong. It means you're not living. It means that your life and your ideals are not in congruence. They cannot see what you believe in the life that you're living. But if you're living up to the ideals, vision, belief, values of your life, then you don't need too many words to say a thing. People can see it in your life, and they can get it because they can see it in your life, right? So that's important. That's important. So follow through your words, be a person of your word, right? Life isn't about impressing people. Life is about expressing who you are. being you, expressing who you are. Life is not about trying to impress people. It's about being who you are, selling yourself, selling your brand, right? That is important. That's the way you win in life. You don't win in life by trying to dance onto other people's music. You win in life by playing your own music and dancing to your own music. That's important, right? You cannot win against the church. You can only win along with the church, right? Yeah, that's important. So we're going to move on to chapter 5 here. And title of chapter 5 was Stay 5 Steps Ahead, right? Pretty much being ahead of the ball game, right? So you're here today, but you're really thinking far into the future and seeing how the future affects the present. You're not stuck in the future and doing that. You're only trying to prepare a plan for the future. You want to make sure that what you're doing today is going to win for you in the future, right? That's important. It's called planning, it's called preparing, it's called building your house, building your nest, right? And another way of looking at that also is it's being strategic, right? It's stepping out of the frame so you can see the whole picture, right? And then just fixated on the immediate. But you can in the immediate and being in the frame, but you can understand how what's in the frame is affecting what is outside the frame. And you're then able to harness the opportunities and protect yourself from the threats, that might be in the picture around that. Yeah. So God wants us to think. I mean, the only way we're able to do all of this because we can think, and God created us a living soul. He created us beings that can think, right? That's why it gave us a free will, right? And He gave us liberty so that we can think and use that thinking for a good hand, so that's what God has done for us. And He wants us to think. God intentionally created us to think. He's not going to think for us. He's not going to force anything on us, right? It's going to be we thinking. That's what differentiates people. Otherwise, we all be the same. The reason why we're not the same is because we get the result of our thinking and our decisions, right? We are rewarded for our thinking and our decisions, including our non-thinking. You are rewarded for your no thinking. You're rewarded for your thinking. That's what determines whether you succeed in life or not, right? God created us to think like Him, imagine and build our lives, right? And to the extent to which we use that will determine the results we get out of life, right? One of the things that helps us in the line of thinking is what we call the SWOT analysis, right? So a SWOT, the S stands for strength, W stands for weakness, O stands for opportunities, and T stands for threats, right? So pretty much I look at my strengths, I look at my weaknesses, those are internal to me, right? And then look at that against how do I harness the opportunities in the environment and stay away from the threats in the environment, right? And that helps me from a business standpoint, that helps me from a personal standpoint also, as I do the planning for each week, each day, each month, each year, each decade, right? I'm looking at those 4 things. I'm saying, what do I have? What do I not have? What are the opportunities? What are the threats? What are the possible things that can go wrong? Then I plan around all of that, So that's important, And that ties also to what Sun Tzu would tell us. It says that they need to know, right? What we know, it will hurt us, right? If we know the enemy and know ourselves, we're guaranteed success. If we don't know the enemy and know ourselves, we have a problem. If we know the enemy and we don't know ourselves, we have a problem. And all of that has a SWOT analysis. In this case, you might call the enemy your weaknesses. In one way sense, you can call the enemy all the things in the environment, and call the things within you your strength and your weaknesses. And that way of looking at it, you call the friend your strength and your opportunities, and your enemies the weakness and the threats. Whichever way you look at it, the important thing is it's a tool just to help you to think and plan and harness the opportunities while protecting yourself from the threats. So great. Well, just ways of thinking, just so something to help us in that wise, right? So another thing we looked at on the chapter 5 is that knowledge is important, right? But knowledge is useless unless we use it. Unless we apply knowledge, knowledge is useless. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge is simply potential power. The ability to use the knowledge by thinking, to put it in the right place for application, and thus applying it is what is power, right? The dictionary is useless until someone comes and picks the right words and put them in the right order to pass on an idea, right? That's when there's power, right? So it's good to have knowledge, but knowledge on its own is useless. It's the thinking that makes it powerful, and using it, ability in a place that you can use it, you can apply it, then you get wisdom. Then you're able to apply it right, and you get the results that you desire, right? So that's important. All right, so continuing in chapter 5, it just talks about, again, just emphasizing what I just said. It's good to think, it's good to have a plan, but you must execute, right? There's no, you can put all the plan in a wall. You got to execute it, to get the result that you want, right? So that's important. We're going to jump on here. All right. So, in all our thinking, we need to be tactical, think around the immediate things, strategic, think about the big picture, both think about things in the frame, think about things outside the frame, and all of that put together, it's what help us, to succeed in life. All right, great. I'm going to move into chapter 6 here now. So in chapter 6, we talked about know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Pretty much we focus on pivoting, right? Now, be knowing when to make changes, knowing when to make changes so that you can stay ahead of the game, ahead of the ball game, right? So here we looked at 2 types of changes, right? What we call the evolutionary changes that should be taking place on a daily basis as we adapt to the environment, and also what we call the big, hurry, audacious changes, right? Which are giant steps, right? Sudden changes, or 180-degree changes, 360-degree changes, so those are 2 different types of changes that we need to make, to be successful in life as a person and also as a business, right? So like relocation to a new place would be like a big, area audacious change, but every day we get better, we get new information, we improve our process, those are what we call the evolutionary changes, so those, both of them are important, that helps you to not be a dinosaur in life or whatsoever industry or place you find yourself, that you're current, you're fresh, you're able to harness the opportunities that are available to you. Life does not pass you by and leave you behind, but you're always ahead of the game, and able to get the benefit of that, that's important. So that's pretty much a summary of most of what we spoke about in chapter 6. I'm going to go on to chapter 7 here. And in chapter 7, we spoke about you're only as good as the weakest link, right? So, so when you build your team, you have to, it's the job of a leader, really, the popular saying is that the strength of a team or strength of a chain is the weakest link, and that's looked at as the weakest person in the team, but that's not altogether true. The strength of a team, right, is the strength of a leader, because the leader's job to uphold everyone. The buck stops on the table of the leader, right? The strength of a team is the strength of a leader of that team, because the buck stops on the leader's table. It's up to the leader to ensure everyone is pulling their own weight, right? And there's someone that's not pulling their weight and is not willing to pull their weight, you need to let that person go. So the strength of a team really is the strength of the leader. Yeah, to be able to have the right oversight, the right mentoring, the right coaching of the team to make it work. So we said several things around leadership, right? I said really leadership is about the ability to delegate, right? The secret to growth is your ability to command other people's time, skills, connections, and talents. That involves being able to trust people, being able to delegate things to them to do. Not everybody will be up there being able to pull their own weight, but you need to mentor them, coach them, and give them time to grow, right? People are not going to measure up to your standard from day one, but but you need to set the right standard for them and let them grow. Now, if they refuse to grow, then you need to probably exit them from your team. But you need to grow your team, to where you want it to be, and that involves time, that involves trust, and if they're willing to, yes. If they're not, then you change them, right? Oh, great. So that's pretty much all that we have, from chapter 7. Hoping I didn't rush too much going through it. Hoping you got something, some recording, so you can always listen to it over again. That's pretty much what we covered, looking at chapter 4, 5, 6, and 7. Next week, we're going to do chapter 8. Let me look at that. We're going to do chapter 8 next week. We're going to do chapter 8, 9, and 10 next week. That's what we're going to be covering in part 3 of our book summary. I hope this helped you. I hope this blessed you one way or the other. Feel free to drop a question, comment for me. Other than that, I'm going to shut this down and let you go. Have a great week ahead. Have a great remaining of the day. God bless you. Bye-bye.